Resting on Jesus is our title for today. And to kind of get ourselves into that thought process, not only this physical exercise, which, by the way, is one of the things you do in yoga, so a lot of people find that practice to be helpful and not realizing that it's actually a religion, but there are some good things about it. However, most of us are more familiar with watching babies sleep in their mother's arms, especially after a time of hard play. It's one of the most powerful images in all of the world of comfort and rest. It's found in every culture around the world, and there are hundreds of statues and sculptures. There are thousands of paintings in all cultures, and who knows how many photographs there might be of a sleeping child in mom's arms. And that image of rest is the image that Jesus wants us to have as we think about what he says. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. But the key is, the rest that he's talking about is different than this baby's rest. He's talking about, yes, the stopping of activity. He's talking about, yes, sleep. But he's also talking about being recharged in life. So we have to ask the question, what do we need to rest from? Well, I must tell you that one of the American values is to worry. It's a sin, but we still value it. Like God's not in charge and we got to think about, all this stuff. But we worry about all kinds of things, like our job or our money or our relationships or repairs that need to be done or another ceiling fan that needs to be hung. Don't ask me about that. The faithfulness of our spouse, how the kids are going to turn out, all those kind of things. Or maybe we're worried about the future of Grace Lutheran Church and the call committee and who's going to be the next pastor and are they really going to fix that window and get it back by November? The real question then comes, how do we get through life without worry? It's so much a part of us that, and the flip side of the coin is that if we don't worry, then we must not care. We must not give a rip. We're just somebody who's a little flighty and doesn't worry about things, and that horrible song is true, Don't Worry, Be Happy. Like, that's a work all by itself. The real truth is we're to do our best. Yes, God's given us talents, gifts, and abilities, interests, resources, and people in our lives. And so we are to do our best with all of those and to work hard at doing our best, but leaving it in God's hands. Because Jesus says in our text, take my yoke upon you. Do what he wants. My yoke is light, Jesus said. Now, problem for us today is most of us don't know yokes. Now, he was a carpenter. Did we have the one with the oxen before this one? I think, thank you. He would take and fit yokes to the oxen because the bone structure would be minor differences and the muscles would be a little bit different and all those kinds of things. And so it was important to make sure that fit that particular animal well so that there wouldn't be bruising, there wouldn't be sores. Certainly open sores would have to heal before you could use that animal again, and you couldn't, afford to have so many extras, so to speak. And these yokes were important for plowing and for work. It was an agrarian society, and moving materials. It would be easy then on the animal if the yoke was fitted for it correctly. Now, we don't really understand that unless you buy a bad-fitting pair of shoes. Ladies in particular, you might understand this. I don't know who in the world ever invented stiletto heels, but I'll tell you, they didn't wear them very long. Don't ask me how I know about that either. It was a Halloween costume, and it was a long time ago. And I walked a long way. Okay? That's more than I intended to say. But if you understand this idea of something not binding on you and being comfortable to do work in, you could understand that Jesus, as the heavenly carpenter, fits the yoke of our lives in such a way, well, if we let him, that his yoke is easy, his burden is light. You see, Jesus wants us to have his yoke of ease and light, and it's a lightweight burden. He took our yoke in the most wonderful trade ever made. He took our heavy, ill-fitting, bruising, open sore creating, painful yoke of sin upon himself and carried it all the way to the cross, all the way to his death. That yoke was hitched to all of your sins, all of my sins, all of the world's sins together. All sins now, all sins in the past, and all sins in the future were hitched to that yoke. And that's what killed him. That yoke killed him. He who knew no sin became sin for us. And our worship then helps us to rest in Jesus. You see, for Christians, it's keeping the Lord's Day. It's keeping our version of the commandment, remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy. And we even have secular motives for taking time off. There have been research studies that have been done, and in particular, one that I read about biologists, that we use up more energy during a day's work than we recover in a night's sleep. And so we need that extra day to catch up. Even in non-church attending Germany, Sunday closings are strictly observed as if to say, you will relax. That's as good as I get with that, thankfully. But on the Lord's Day, we open ourselves up to the power of inspiration, to the power of courage, to the reconciliation of one another's company. Where two or three are gathered in his name, there he is. He gives us the church's worship so as to learn how to best receive the gift. Yes, we need physical sleep, rest, but we also need spiritual rest. This is a picture of the youth gathering, and they're headed with their backpacks, all the same color, to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. I happen to be a part of this youth gathering. Truly amazing when you have about 25,000 of our LCMS youth gathering in one place to worship, to be renewed, to be refreshed. Even just that fact renews us. and it brings rest to our souls. Oh, I know about the other thing.